and Ivisa sat side by side on the bed. "Tell me, what kind of feast did Her Highness the Princess treat you to?" Perseus asked curiously. "Jerome didn't eat with us." Ivisa glanced at him. When he saw me arrive, he quickly left the restaurant, saying he didn't want me to misunderstand. "When did I ask you that?" Perseus asked, bewildered. "Inferno Kingdom's traditional dishes suit my taste very well." Ivisa gave him a deep look. "Honey, I'm really not a narrow-minded man. I won't get nervous or suspicious just because you have a meal with another man." Perseus smiled. "Completely unnecessary explanation. I just want you to understand my feelings so that there won't be any misunderstandings. I don't care, just like I don't care what you did with those 2 women at noon today. I can tell you about this later. Just take it as entertainment, but for now." Perseus paused for a moment, then asked, "Why did you agree to eat at their restaurant?" "You know why?" Ivisa said. "Yeah, about revenge." "Did she make you any promises?" Perseus asked. "No, only hints," Ivisa said. "All hints." "What a cunning woman. No wonder you wouldn't stay with her." Perseus clicked his tongue. "Actually, this was within my expectations," Ivisa said. "I wasn't blinded by hatred and willing to believe anyone or do anything for that matter. I agreed to have dinner just to test them." "My darling is amazing," Perseus said with a smile. Ivisa remained expressionless. "So, what did you gain?" he asked. "No." "Then ignore the same invitations in the future. There's no need to waste time on this kind of person." Perseus knew that whatever Mellifera wanted to do, she's very panicked right now. The entire Infero royal family was in a panic. At the very least, that anxiety and fear are something that can't be shaken off no matter what. Because of the current international situation, it seems that the kingdom and the empire have made peace in recent years, and even Crown Prince Jerome has come to study in the empire, which fully demonstrates the mutual trust between the 2 countries without any suspicion. But in reality, peace was just a fleeting moment. The reason why the 2 countries are sworn enemies, and why the empire is determined to fight the kingdom to the death, is because the kingdom's geographical location is just too important. Without conquering the kingdoms, the empire will forever remain a ruler confined to a corner of the continent. Only by conquering kingdoms can an empire have a chance to dominate the entire continent. Since the founding of the empire, successive monarchs have harbored such grand ambitions and ambitions. However, although the kingdom was weak, it was not to be trifled with, and it had offended many emperors. The current emperor, Pamlaweni III, who was Ivisa's nemesis, ordered a cessation of war with the kingdom and established friendly relations with it at the beginning of his reign. This drew a lot of criticism and condemnation, with many people criticizing the new emperor for being too weak. But peace also led to the rapid development of the empire's national strength, and everything was steadily improving. Even former enemy nations are amazed that the empire finally has a benevolent and tolerant emperor, and that peace on the continent is in sight. Those doubts vanished instantly after Katuktu performed a great service to the empire in destroying a country not long ago. The empire's neighboring countries also recalled the fear of being dominated by the empire. In addition, the Ephron family was destroyed. Everyone, both at home and abroad, realized that this emperor was not weak at all, but a ruthless character who was more dangerous than any of the previous emperors. Once the empire's war machine is in full swing, the kingdom will be the first to bear the brunt. That's how it is in the original story. Jerome's exchange of a major military town for Ivisa from the emperor sparked widespread resentment within the kingdom, with everyone directing their anger at Ivisa and nearly triggering a rebellion. But when the imperial army pressed in, Ivisa descended like a goddess and defeated the enemy, and everyone hailed her as a savior. This time, however, the kingdom had no savior goddess. Thinking of this, Perseus wanted to laugh again. Suddenly, he took Ivisa's hand. "Honey, when are we leaving the capital? The situation here is too complicated. It's not a good time for us to build up our strength." That's true. Perseus couldn't think of any reason why he had to stay in the capital. The nobility and foreign powers led by Miri Farah. And then there's the most troublesome and deadly dog emperor. As long as he stays in the capital, he has to live under the watchful eyes of these people. And he is even afraid to go to the toilet. If I could leave the capital, the world is so vast, where couldn't I go? Where can't you live a more carefree life than here? Now that the emperor has made his stance clear, wouldn't it be wonderful to slip away before the other party changes his mind? I can't leave. As he was envisioning all the wonderful things to come, Ivisa spoke up. "What?" Perseus frowned slightly. If you want me to leave, I must first confirm the current situation of my mother and my sister. Ivisa looked at him intently. If they are still alive. Of course they're still alive, Perseus said. Then I need to know what I want to know, otherwise I won't go anywhere. Ivisa withdrew her hand, indicating that there was no room for negotiation. Of course, your request is reasonable. Perseus suppressed the urge to curse and spoke slowly. You can go to bed tonight. Ivisa casually put her hand back into his. But then again, Chapter 37 Gade is back. To be able to bury your head in Ivisa's fragrant hair and fall asleep is truly one of life's greatest pleasures. Unfortunately, even though I pretended to be half asleep last night and tried to put my arm around her waist, she still almost kicked me off the bed. But being able to go to bed with someone is at least a kind of progress, right? However, what happened next put Perseus in a very difficult situation. Ivisa needed to confirm the current situation of her mother and sister before she would leave the capital with him. Actually, her thinking this way was entirely within his expectations. Perseus knew very well that his empty words had only given Ivisa, who had fallen into utter despair, a sliver of hope. Ivisa was willing to believe in this slim hope, which is why she has cooperated with him until now. But in her heart, an almost endless anxiety and doubt scorched her like flames, preventing her from relaxing for a moment. If Ivisa can get what she wants, it would undoubtedly be a great thing for him. Currently, Ivisa's obedience level to him is hovering around 20 points, which means she has clearly reached a bottleneck. If Ivisa knew that her mother and sister were still alive, her obedience level would definitely increase dramatically. Conversely, if he cannot fulfill this woman's wishes, her suspicion and disappointment in him will only increase day by day. Not only will the current level of obedience be lost, it may even drop below 0. In other words, Ivisa will completely break free from his control, disregard everything, and go straight to fight the Dog Emperor. That would mean he's finished in every sense of the word. Last night, what seemed like Ivia was just expressing her own needs was actually a way of urging him on. The countdown has already begun, and the longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous the situation will become for him. Summer vacation will begin in about 2 months. Perseus's plan was to take advantage of the summer vacation to elope with Ivisa to a place where the Emperor's influence couldn't reach them and develop their power in secret. These 2 months are probably the time frame Ivisa gave him. Success or failure depends entirely on these 2 months. The first major hurdle to conquering the world has now been revealed. Although it was only the first question, it was really going to kill Perseus. He certainly didn't lie to Ivisa. Her mother and sister were indeed alive and well. However, the place they are in now is the most secluded and difficult to break through in the entire Western continent. Without exception, that was a secret chamber in the royal palace of the Shalinria Empire. To gain Ivisa's trust, even if we don't let her meet with them, we should at least show her some token of trust. This requires him to sneak into the palace, enter the secret room, talk to Ivisa's mother, gain her trust, and then take her keepsake out of the palace to show Ivisa. The whole process is harder than climbing to heaven. After all, the location of that secret chamber wasn't anywhere else but in the Emperor's bedchamber. If he could sneak in unnoticed and then slip out unnoticed, why not just slit the Emperor's throat as well? It's ridiculous. However, this was something he had to do. Otherwise, there would be no need to implement any of the subsequent plans. With such conflicted and painful feelings, Perseus began his new day with a smile. Then half a month passed, and there was no progress at all. It's not fair to blame him for inaction. He simply didn't know where to begin. Anyone else in the world would be helpless in the face of such a situation. The Imperial Palace is teeming with experts, and the Emperor himself is a top-tier master of both physical and magical arts. How can anyone compete with that? Ivisa didn't say anything, but her gaze towards him gradually became subtle. Perseus was forced to spend the night on the ceiling again. Fortunately, the level of obedience has not decreased for the time being. Although Perseus did not explicitly state the location of her mother and sister, she did hint at it. Ivisa isn't stupid. Of course she can guess most of it. The level of understanding between them is quite high, to be honest. Having a tacit understanding alone is not enough to make Ivisa truly admire him. In the past 2 weeks, everything has been fine except for this one unresolved problem. With Winnie's generous assistance, he had no shortage of money. Every day, I have the little fairy Helen and the cute Luna by my side. Occasionally, I can even sneak a kiss with Helen. It couldn't be more pleasant. He usually chats and laughs with Mellifera and plays embarrassing games with Ivisa. Ivisa was ashamed he played. It's also very refreshing. As she predicted, Lovia would disown her cousin and ignore him as long as Helen didn't break up with him. Occasionally, when she caught a glimpse of those long, alluring legs from afar, she would snort coldly and turn away. But couldn't her disdainful look be a reward for Perseus? It's just that Winnie the Pooh and her big breasts are getting weirder and weirder. Perhaps because he had spent so much time living with Ivisa, he inevitably picked up some of her scent. So Winnie became attached to him, often dragging him to a secluded corner, hugging him, and then sniffing him all over. Even Perseus found it very strange. Although Winnie's body was frighteningly soft, who would be happy to have their woman targeted by a pervert, even if this pervert is a woman? In fact, in the original work, Ivisa was similar to a succubus, loved by everyone regardless of age or gender. He figured that the reason he was able to win Luna's favor so easily was not only because Luna was innocent and easy to fool, but also because the succubus attribute he obtained from Ivisa definitely played a significant role. However, being too charming isn't necessarily a good thing. I suppose Ivisa wouldn't want to be attracted to some perverted freak, right? In any case, regardless of age or gender, anyone who dares to touch his woman will only face death. Although Winnie is also a stunning beauty with impressive stats, she is incomparable to Ivisa. His Ivisa is the best girl in the world. Wait, something seems off? Anyway, life went on day by day. Perseus's greatest strength was going with the flow. Since there was no opportunity at the moment, he simply enjoyed life. But he had eyes behind his eyes, always watching for the smallest opportunities. Once discovered, he will never let it go. There's always a way out. He couldn't believe he'd be stuck at the first hurdle. No matter how perfect the palace's defenses are, there will always be gaps. One afternoon during recess, Perseus was chatting happily with the girls when a boy from his class, who had never spoken a word before, came over and said someone was looking for him. Perseus walked out of the classroom and realized it was his second brother, Gade. The two brothers had been out of the public eye for quite some time, since the day Lovia slapped him into the mud. This is really unlucky. Second brother, what brings you here? Perseus smiled. Sure. Gade nervously gestured for him to be quiet, as if he didn't want the people in the classroom to know he was there. Perseus nodded silently, a friendly smile on his face. Come with me. This time, Gade didn't resort to violence. He just looked at him with a complicated expression and spoke softly. Perseus didn't care at all. His current strength was not something a mere first-tier mage could threaten. If Gade still dares to attack him without any sense, then that bastard is in big trouble today. Wait for me a moment. I'll go back and say hello to them, Perseus said. In the past, if Gade hadn't acted immediately when asked to do something, Gade would have slapped him across the face. But this time, Gade remained silent. This jerk may be a jerk, but he's not particularly stupid. Oh, you should have realized something by now, right? Chapter 38, Gade's Good Intentions. Perseus and Gade returned to the same old spot. That's the place where that bitch got slapped into the mud by Lovia. That mud pit is still there. Seeing that Perseus was staring at the mud puddle, Gade recalled an unpleasant past event, and a vein bulged on his forehead, but he did not react. Perseus, you've been living the high life lately, haven't you? You've almost forgotten about your second brother, haven't you? Gade said with a smile. What makes you say that? Perseus smiled. I could forget anyone but you, my second brother. I heard you also attended His Highness the Crown Prince's selection ball the other day, and you stole the show. Now, a lot of important people are paying attention to you. You're really something. I really didn't expect that, Perseus said with a helpless expression. In any case, what you did at the auction seems to have not only not harmed you, but actually made you. Everyone praises you for your courage, resourcefulness, and pioneering spirit. Even a woman like the Duchess of Lamanter is captivated by you. Gade's face darkened, and he spoke through gritted teeth. Those praises are completely undeserved, but my relationship with Miss Helen is indeed true. Perseus nodded. Gade's eyes turned red with jealousy. His fists clenched so tightly they cracked, and he took repeated breaths to calm himself. How could you have thought of that? Gade said slowly. How could you have imagined that buying that woman would not only ensure your safety, but also attract the attention of those important figures? You're clearly a good-for-nothing. He forced himself to swallow the remaining word. Actually, I didn't think that much about it. I just happened to have a gold coin in my pocket, so I bought it on a whim, Perseus said, shrugging. Fools are indeed blessed. Gade chuckled softly through gritted teeth.